So what we have this evening, I think personally, is a very special presentation. We've shared a lot of destinations since April. This one, I will confess, it is not one that I have personally been to, although I've done a lot of research. And the reason why is because as a diver and an avid traveler, this is a personal bucket list item for me. Also, Terry, who is on our staff as well. For us, the Solomons has it all. And I think for any of you that kind of saw our Facebook post in the last couple of days, whether it's macro, whether it's historic wrecks, whether it's exciting stuff, you name it, amazing coral reefs. My goodness, I cannot stop listing the reasons that I want to go to Solomon Islands. And it's something that's been evading me for the last couple of years. But I know a lot about it. I've done the research. But now it's time to make it happen. And for those of you that have been following us, I wanted to share this with you because I honestly think for those of you that are experienced divers that have been all around the world, if you haven't been to Solomon Islands, you need to put it on the bucket list with me. So without further ado, I have Sam and Kelly from Bilikiki Cruises, and they're going to share with you all about the Solomon Islands. Welcome, Kelly and Sam.
Thanks, Cheryl. Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone. As Cheryl said, my name's Sam and this is Kelly. We both own and operate at Bilikiki Cruises in the Solomon Islands. So that's us. You can see back when we used to work on the boat. So we managed the boat and did all the diving for 7 years. And we bought the company and have been running the bookings and doing things like this for the last 7 years as well. So we've been involved with the Solomons and the company for a long time. It was working on the boat was awesome for 7 years. We got to do amazing diving every day, and we'd just like to share some about the Solomons and what make the Solomons so great and why you should head there. So the first question we tend to get about the Solomon Islands is where are the Solomon Islands? It's probably not the most known destination in the world. It's a small country and not a lot of visitors there. There's only 5 or 6 dive operators. You pretty much get every dive site to yourself. It's shocking if you see anyone else around. Whole island groups to yourself even. So the Solomons are between Fiji and Papua New Guinea in the South Pacific, so we're south of the equator, northeast of Australia. It's a short hop from Fiji. So that's about where we are, right in the middle of the South Pacific there. That's the islands there. The Solomons itself is made up of over 990 islands. Some of the islands are a little more than a rock, but there's 9 major ones with a lot of small fringing reef around them and small islands. Not many people. It's a very sparsely populated country. The population's well under 500,000, very spread out, living traditional lifestyles. There's a lot of sea and a lot of little islands, beautiful tropical islands with great fringing reefs, which makes for great diving. It's part of the Coral Triangle. For those, I'm sure most of you know what the Coral Triangle is, which is the area between the Philippines, Malaysia, and the Solomons, which is the most diverse area in the world for marine life. So the Solomons, you can see there, is the southeast corner of that. Alrighty. So the diving in the Solomons, let's just say it's part of the Coral Triangle. It's amazingly diverse. The second highest ever fish count, so for fish species count, done in 2004, was done in the Solomons. And it's not just the marine life itself, but the kind of diving you get to do. There's beautiful big walls, coral, amazing coral gardens, big stuff, little stuff, wrecks, caves, muck diving. There's really a little bit of everything there. So it's pretty amazing. And we're going to get into looking at some photos and stuff about all those different kinds of diving. It's the other great thing is the conditions that are really pleasant. The water's warm all year round, so 82 to 86 Fahrenheit pretty much all year round. I used to dive in a pair of board shorts and a rashi, so if you don't feel the cold.
I feel the cold, so yeah. I dive in a 3 mil.
She dives in a 3 mil.
Sometimes with a hood.
But yeah, the water's warm, it's clear, the seas are flat generally, especially in the day amongst the island, but it's really a very pleasant place to go diving. We'll get more into that in a minute too. And it's also great for photography. So let's start having a look at some of the photos. We get a lot of well-known photographers on the boat. And and we thought we'd share some of those with you and talk a bit about what kind of diving. So as I mentioned, there's an amazing array of different environments in the Solomons. It's probably most famous for hard corals. The hard corals there are really spectacular. Has, again, one of the diversest areas in the world for coral counts. There's over 500 species, or nearly 500 species in the Solomons altogether, from your delicate little branching corals, like in the bottom right there, to your bigger boulder corals. In a time where, there's reefs are taking a bit of a hammering in a lot of places, I'm glad to say the Solomons are still in really good shape. The corals are amazing, like shallow coral gardens almost on every dive. There's also really amazing big drop-offs. A lot of the Solomons are sheer walls, which tend to form around tropical islands on fringing reefs like that. And there you get the sea fans and schooling fish and things like that along those. So we'll go through a few photos there. There's some more fans, kind of an example of what the coral gardens are like. A lot of those are really shallow. We get a lot of people coming to snorkel too, because you can see a lot of it really close to the surface. There we go. Yeah, more of it. You get it. It's not just fans, but also soft corals, whip corals, just really, really beautiful, lush reefs with a lot of marine life on there too. We'll get onto that in a minute, but amazing amounts of tropical fish and schooling fish around those reefs. As well as the just general natural beauty, there's also a lot of caves and cracks, really amazing like geological features that have formed in the coral. There's a couple of famous ones there, but they make for great photos with the natural light, as well as being really atmospheric places to explore and swim around. The Rukat, I don't know if anyone's heard that, it's probably one of the most famous dives in the Solomons. You see it, it's been on the front cover of a few magazines. It's a big vertical crack going back into an island. You can swim right back in there. And if you dive it at the right time of day, you get amazing beams of light coming down. It's just a really magical, beautiful place to go diving. Once you get out, there's tons of trevallies and jacks and stuff along a really, again, sheer wall with beautiful fans. It's normally a pretty pleasant drift dive along that too. Below caves is another similar dive, a bunch of connected, they're not quite caves, well, they're kind of caves, but a lot of open top parts to it, quite shallow, but you can swim in between all those different spots there. Again, like I said, lots of marine life. There's still plenty of sharks in the Solomons, and we see quite a few different kinds there, black tips, white tips, reef sharks of various kinds. You get the odd hammerhead there.
Occasional silver tips,
things like that. So there's still sharks around, as well as schooling fish. There's a few spots. Mary Island is another famous spot in the Solomons. It's a remote island out by itself. No one lives there, so it's still virgin rainforest. It's a really beautiful place, top of an old volcano, and it really looks like one too. But it attracts a lot of schooling fish, amazingly big schools of barracudas and jacks. The jacks will let you, and the barracudas will let you get right in the middle of them there. It's a really spectacular spot, and because you're away from the land, the visibility tends to be amazing there too. It's a really special spot, beautiful corals and bumphead parrotfish, all kinds of things to see, but the barracudas there are quite unbelievable sometimes. It's just huge amounts of them. Again, there's a couple more photos of things you might see there. And as you can see there, the barracudas schooling up around the diver in the middle, and it'll let you get right in amongst them. It's a really magical spot. You get the odd manta ray there. There's some other schooling fish. Obviously, we see that at other points too. But yeah, a lot of areas in the Solomons, there's very few people, so there's still an awful lot of fish there. So you get a lot of things like the big-eyed jacks and trevallies and things like that. There's also a spot called Devil's Highway, which is strong current. It's a gap between two islands, and when the current's coming the right way, you get manta rays coming in the current there to feed. So you kind of jump in, do a drift dive, and hang just underneath the reef edge. And with a bit of luck, the manta rays come right by you and then come up over your head to feed in the current. It's It's a spectacular spot. There's a particularly good day there. I'd like to say it was like that every day, but you nearly always see manta rays there. It's another really magical spot in the Solomons. There's some more photos from Devil's Highway. As you can see, they come right by you. As well as the bigger stuff, there is a ton of little things in the Solomons. It's not Lembe Strait. We do a little bit of muck diving, but there's an amazing amount of little things too, from things like pygmy seahorses and ghost pipefish, lots of different kinds of nudibranchs, to the kind of smaller crustaceans. The coral hermit crabs you see in the bottom there are pretty unique to the Solomons. You don't find those in too many places. Hairy squat lobsters. So if you're into your photography and like macro stuff, there's a ton of things to take photos too of there. So yeah, some more examples of some of the macro stuff you can see. As you can see, really colorful things. We have the guys in the water are great at finding that stuff for you. You can see there's some examples of some of the stuff you can find. Again, it's not just all the tiny things. Some slightly bigger things like crocodile fish and cuttlefish. Cuttlefish you see reasonably commonly there. And again, stuff that will let you get up close and get a great photo. Hang on, sorry, one sec. There we go. So yeah, as well as the macro and the big stuff, there's an amazing diversity of fish there. I think on that one fish count, they found something like 1,400 species on one reef, which is a pretty amazing amount. So there's a staggering array of colorful tropical fish, from all the kind of things you see there, like antheas, angelfish, butterfly fish, all the kind of things you expect to see on a tropical reef. You get there in abundance. There's an absolute ton of different tropical fish. It's like swimming in an aquarium a lot of the time.
There's also 9 different species of anemone fish in the Solomons. So on a trip you can see all 9 species, which is quite a lot for a small country to have.
Yeah, definitely. As well as things like archerfish, which are the ones that they hang out in mangrove areas and spit water out to knock insects out. Geez, at least they do on nature programs. But other unique wildlife like that you don't see in too many other places. Tons of blennies. I mean, we could sit here and list all the different kinds of fish you can see there for a very long time. But I think, looking through these photos, you probably get a great idea of just how diverse the fish life is there. Again, like I said, the Solomons is renowned for its diversity, not just in the marine life, but in the different kinds of diving you do. So on a trip, you get to do, plenty of coral gardens and walls, but a bit of like mud diving in sandy areas, looking for little things. Some of those kind of cave diving too, not serious cave diving, but in open like cavern diving and into cracks and things like that. As well as there's also wrecks from the Second World War. The Solomons is probably historically most known for Guadalcanal, which is where the Japanese and Americans first met during the Second World War. And some of the most fierce naval battles of the Second World War were in the Solomons. Unfortunately, a lot of those wrecks are very deep. I guess it's not what they were thinking about at the time. But we do dive a few of them.
A few of the shallower ones.
A few of the shallower ones, sorry, yeah. So Iron Bottom Sound, which is the area outside of Guadalcanal, is home to a lot of different wrecks. We dive. There's a seaplane, a Japanese seaplane, sunk in just about 80 feet of water, which is still pretty much intact, which is pretty amazing after 70 odd years. Along with some Japanese freighters, they still have guns on them and things like that, and some other planes. I mean, there is a dive shop in Honiara that specializes in diving to some of the deeper wrecks if you're into stuff like that.
If you're into technical diving.
If you're into technical diving, we don't do it on board ourselves. We're not really set up for it, and our clients aren't generally interested. But yeah, if you are interested in doing that, then that can certainly be arranged as well. So it's one of the most significant areas in the battle in Second World War in the South Pacific. So there's some more shots. There's also a spot called White Beach, and a couple of those shots are from there. One on the bottom left.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I was going to say, the one on the bottom left is, I'm not sure if you can make it out, but it's a truck. So at the end of the war, the Americans, instead of packing up all their stuff and taking it back, tipped a lot of it into the sea in the Pacific. And this site has trucks and jeeps and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, bombs.
Lots of ammunition and
bottles,
bombs and Coke bottles and all sorts of stuff. So it's kind of like a junkyard underwater, and it's really interesting to swim around. It also has a ton of great critters there as well. So if you're not into wrecks, nearly all the wreck dives have amazing critters or fish life on them, so it keeps everyone entertained.
Yeah, White Beach there is also in the mangroves, so you get great opportunity to do some over-under shots and see the archer fish we were talking about earlier and things like that. So yeah, it's a really different kind of a spot to the more open ocean reefs that we do a lot of the time. There's some modern day wrecks too. Again, we normally do them because they're very scenic. The one on the right there is called the Wreck of the Anne. It's covered in big elephant ear sponges. It's a really beautiful spot and makes great photos too. Generally in really clear water. The one on the left, we dive on longer trips. It's a more modern one. That photo hasn't been rotated. That's actually the way it ended up lying in the water. It was on its maiden voyage, and the captain chose the wrong two islands to try and go between and managed to run aground. Before they could salvage it, it started sinking and was bottom heavy. So it ended up sliding down the reef face and ended up completely vertical. So you can see in that photo there, the bubbles going up. So the bottom's in about 110 feet and the top's in about 10 feet. And the drop off after that goes to about another 300 or 400 feet, and it just happened to get stuck on a ledge. So it's pretty much sitting there completely vertically. It's a very interesting and slightly disorientating dive, but as you can see, you can make a great photo if you get it on a beautiful clear day like that. Where are we? So that's the stuff you see a lot of the time. Once in a while, you come across something, possibly even more amazing. There are a lot of saltwater crocodiles in the Solomons. You don't see them diving. They don't hang out on the reefs generally. They tend to be up shallow, and in the day, they're just hiding out the way. So they're not a problem. We've never had problems with them.
We don't see them very often.
No, we do get groups wanting to go look for them. And there's a spot where you can go find them. As long as you stay underwater, they're fine. But again, you only see them if you want to. I don't think I've ever actually seen one outside of...
I've never seen one by accident.
No. Again, once in a while we get orcas come through the Solomons. You kind of associate them more with cold water, but they do come through tropical waters too. They eat the hammerheads mostly, which is pretty crazy. As well as whales, we get a couple of trips a year with groups who are whale spotters, or one or two trips a year. So there's an amazing array of different whales because it's very open ocean and a lot of ocean without a lot of land. You get a lot of whales around. You unfortunately don't see them diving very often. Once in a while we try and get a snorkel with them. That was the bottom right there is one time we had some sperm whales we got to swim with. There's a ton of dolphins too in the Solomons. It's probably one of the most densely populated, is that how we're putting it, areas in the world for dolphins. So you often get them on the bow wave. They're a little bit shy diving.
We don't often see them diving, but usually around the boat or around the tinnies.
Yeah, you get to see a lot of them there. On our trips as well, and in the Solomons generally, it's also a really fascinating culture. As I said before, it's a very traditional, people still live in very traditional ways there. The modern world hasn't caught up too much there. In a lot of villages, I think there's a photo of that coming up in a minute, people still live very much in traditionally made huts and live in small villages in little islands. So on our trips, we go into a village to see some singing and dancing they do. That's in between the diving, so you don't miss any diving to do that. They play panpipes. We get to look around the village, see how people live traditionally, meet some of the local people there. So it's a real added bonus if you've come to the Solomons to dive, to also see the cultural side and the land side. It's a beautiful country too, still very green and very tropical. So there's some more pictures from on a village visit. As you can see, you get to look around. That's them making canoes. And on the top left there are kind of more traditional huts they live in. On the longer trips, so for things 7 days and longer, we also go into villages to see carvings. They do very intricate, very beautiful wooden carvings in the Solomons up in Mangrove Lagoon, which we go into a village, you get to have a look and buy them if you like. They're very unpushy about it, but you get to have a look around, and a lot of people find them a great souvenir. Most of my relatives have told me they don't want any more carvings as Christmas presents, but they're really beautiful, inlaid often with shells and things like that. So you can see there, you get to go and have a look at that too. We're also quite involved with the communities. We dive there, and it's another great thing to see if you come to the Solomons, not just with us, but any of the operators, is the locals will come out and sell you fruit and vegetables. It's a very easy place to grow stuff. We've actually been handing out seeds in the villages for a long time to try and diversify, well, not just what they eat, but also what we can buy from them. So we get fresh fruit and vegetables all the way around on the trip. As you can see there, a lot of canoes come up to the side. They still use dugout canoes predominantly, which are pretty much just the trunks of trees and paddled by hand. So they bring those out to sell fruit and vegetables, and they come alongside the boat. We also encourage people to bring out school supplies and pens, obviously if you have spare space in your luggage, and hand those out. It's not a very big cash economy over there, so obviously buying stuff from us helps, as does donations for things like school supplies. It really helps people out there. The kids often come and play around the back of the boat. Not too much happens in the Solomons. It's a pretty quiet place generally. A big boat turning up with a bunch of foreigners to go diving is a bit of an event sometimes. And the kids normally come and play on the back of the boat or off the back of the rope there, and they're more than happy to pose for photos and mess around. Once a year too, we also do donate a trip to a medical foundation. So one of the things we try and do to give back a little bit, just to help out. The healthcare there is terrible, so they come and do basic dentistry. I think the dentists, they mostly come from the States, are pretty horrified by what they see.
Yeah, we work with an American charity that organise the doctors and the dentists and the nurses, and they come out, and our crew take them around to the villages in the areas where we dive, just to help out the communities.
So just to talk about the boat a little bit. So Bilikiki's been operating for nearly 30 years. It was one of the first full service liveaboards in the world. It's 125 feet long, it's 24 feet wide. So it's a big boat. It's very stable. It's built for the South Pacific Seas. It wasn't originally a liveaboard, but it's been fitted out to be one, and it's very stable and good with the rough seas. We have 10 air-conditioned cabins, all twin share with their own ensuite. This is a picture of all the crew. They're great guys. Solomon Islands are some of the nicest people you'll meet. They're friendly but quite shy. But a lot of them have been with us. Wilson, one of the crew there, he's been with us for about 25 years, but most of the crew have been with us at least 10 years. Apart from the managers who are in charge of the diving and stuff, everyone else is local. So there's 14 crew in total, which includes engineers and cooks and all the other people you need to run a boat. As I say, it's a big boat. It's a sun deck. Picture of it amongst some very pretty tropical islands there. Another one. So all the diving we do off, we call them tinnies, like little tenders you can see on the side of the boat there. Talk about that more in a little minute. Picture of the dining deck.
It has screens that come down, so if you do have any weather, you can just put the screens down. It's like an enclosed room then. But it's really pleasant when the screens are up and you get a nice sea breeze. It's nice and cool.
We're very set up for cameras on board. There's camera tables there, and in the lounge area, got a big flat screen TV with fish ID books. There's another picture of that. I'm sure you guys are probably more interested in the diving. Get back onto that in a minute. Yeah, again, big area for charging batteries. We've got 110 power on board too, so if you're bringing American appliances, that's not a problem. There's a picture of the cabins. So most of our cabins are like that, with a double bed with a single bunk, but we only ever put 2 people in a cabin. And if you have trouble getting up into a top bunk and you're single, then we have some rooms with just 2 single beds too. So all the diving is done off the dive deck. It's a big dive deck, plenty of room for the 20 people we have on board. We do 4 dives a day and a night dive every day as well. So those dives are unlimited. You can dive as long as you like. Well, with the odd exception where we have to get to another dive site, but generally speaking, you can dive as long as you like. We have dive guides in the water, but you're also welcome to do your own thing as long as you stick within recreational limits. And
so we don't make people dive in a group together. Some photographers really enjoy the freedom just to spend as long as they want on a subject and do their own thing.
Yeah, but there's dive guides there if you'd like them too. So as I said, the tinnies will follow you around on the dives and come pick you up. I'll talk about them in a sec. So here's some people on the dive deck. The crew carry all your gear onto the tinnies. You never have to pick your stuff up once in the whole trip. So as I said, all the diving done from tinny. The odd dive, we jump off the back of the boat if we're tied up somewhere. Otherwise, the tinnies drop you right on the dive site, and then whenever you finish your dive, you just come up, and they just come and pick you up, and then run you straight. The boat's close by, so we just run backwards and forwards, kind of like a taxi service there. It's very easy to get in and out of. Just a little bit of practical stuff. All our charters start and end in Honiara, so there's no need for domestic flights once you've got to the Solomons. We provide all the airport transfers and everything as well. We do on a 10-day trip, you end up doing about 42 or 43 dives, so there's a lot of diving. So if you want to, it's a remote location, it takes a while to get there, so if you want to get in as much diving as you can, then liveaboards are definitely the way to go. And we have nitrox and hard gear on board too. So there's an idea of what the food's like. It is catered to a Western taste. Solomon's cuisine is we do a little bit of it, but it's quite basic. It's a lot of fish and coconut milk. But we do sashimi in the evenings if we catch fish, do nibblies at sunset every day. But the food's really good. Don't get any complaints about the food.
We can cater to different dietary needs. Heaps of fruit and vegetables that we buy the entire trip.
Yeah, like, as we said before, because we can buy them on the way around, we have fresh fruit and veg the whole way around. And in the evening, we do cheese and biscuit nibblies, as we call them in the Solomons, every evening at sunset, which is a nice way of finishing the day if you're not night diving. Where are we going? Well, there we go. So here's some pictures. We get a lot of groups on board, photography groups, groups from dive shops, and a lot of individuals too. And there's some pictures of people having a good time on board. So just to give you an idea of what you can do in the Solomons, on a 10-day trip, you would fly into Honiara, and we go out to the Russell Islands, which is where Lurukat is, which we were talking about earlier, Mary Island, up to Mangrove Lagoon, where the carvings are, and then back into the Florida Islands. So you get to see a lot of the country on a 10-day trip, and 14-night trips, we go a bit further west. Same thing with a week. You don't quite get out as far as Morovo. And the Russell Islands there's more places you can dive. In a 10-day trip, there's more dive sites than you can get to see.
We pretty much do a different dive site every dive.
Yeah, we get a lot of people coming back repeatedly every year, some people. So we get a lot of repeat guests that way. Right, where are we? Okay, briefly, we were asked to mention our COVID policy and the situation with the current pandemic. Basically, the border in the Solomon Islands is closed. They've been very cautious about not getting the virus there, and have so far been successful, fortunately. The healthcare system in the Solomons is very rudimentary, is very basic. So it would be pretty terrible if they did get in there, or particularly terrible. So the border's not open at present. It's definitely closed to the end of October. To be honest, we don't know what will happen after that. We obviously hope it will be open as soon as possible, but also don't want to see people in the country put at risk. Once the border is open and people are able to travel, we'll be following the latest guidelines from the World Health Organization or DAN. At present, we're just waiting to see what the situation is once things open. Obviously, if there's a vaccine or if the virus is there under control, it's going to make a big difference. But we'll be super cautious. We've always run the company very with safety very much in mind. It's a remote location, and
yeah, for guests and staff, we'll just be following whatever the recommendations are when we can open.
All right, and again, just to go back to diving a little bit before we open things up to questions. As we said before, the Solomons is most famous for the diversity, as well as having amazingly flat seas most of the time. Some of the crossings get a little rough, but during the day it's always amongst islands. So it's very flat. The water's warm and clear and just generally pleasant. But what people really come for on the diving is the marine life and the abundance and diversity of that, with the healthy corals, the amazing amount of tropical fish. And again, it's got a bit of everything. If you, especially if you haven't been to the South Pacific before, or you like to mix things up a bit, it's amazing just because you do have so many different kinds of dive sites, with pelagics, macros, stuff, coral reefs, big walls, World War II wrecks, beautiful caves and light coming through cracks in the reef and things like that. So it's a really, really beautiful place to go diving. Yeah, there's some more. Yeah, topside's beautiful as well, as we mentioned. And a quick thank you to, I'm not going to read all those out, but a quick thank you to all the photographers that use their photos. We get a lot of well-known photographers on board. So a quick thank you to them for letting us use their photos. I'm sure you've heard some of those guys, but we also get a lot of dolphins in the Solomons coming around the bow wave, which is a really pleasant thing. And I think that sums it up. That was a little quicker than we expected, but
yeah, we went pretty fast.
I hope you've all got a good idea of what the diving in the Solomons is like, and what there is to come and see, and why you'd want to go there, and why Cheryl's rightly so keen to get there. I hope I've given you a bit of idea of what Bilikiki's like too, and the Solomons in general. If Cheryl's got anything else she'd like to add, or if anyone has any questions, then please fire away. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sam and Kelly. We really appreciate it. And yeah, there are definitely some questions going on. So we've been fielding them off a little bit, but we are going to give everyone the opportunity to talk to you directly if they can. So bear with us just a second. For those of you that are used to doing this with us, you can raise your hand in the chat box, or you can type your question in the chat box if either you don't have a mic or you're shy. Otherwise, we will put you on directly with Sam and Kelly. So David K, you are on.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I can. Hi, David.
Hey, great. Hey, it looks beautiful out there. I've always thought about going. I was wondering, I've never been able to do any mangrove dives. Do you do any of that?
We do. That one spot, White Beach, where we said stuff had been pushed into the sea in the Second World War, that's also mangrovey there. So there's a lot of mangroves all along that shallow reef there. There's other spots too where you get mangroves. So there's definitely opportunities to dive amongst mangroves there.
Yeah, but that White Beach area, I didn't put any in the presentation, but some of the photographers have got some amazing shots there. You get a little bit of soft coral sometimes growing on the bottom of the mangroves, and you get the archer fish up there and a lot of cardinal fish, the orbicular cardinal fish. So
Right.
It makes really nice shots.
Also, do you do any deep water pelagic type dives?
How deep do you mean? Sorry, like.
Well, when you go over something, 1,000 feet deep and you go down 50 feet and wait and see what comes up. What's that called?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Just to see what comes up. We do a bit. I mean, basically, the water off most of the Solomons is a couple of thousand feet, almost 100 feet from shore. So that happens a lot. We do some seamounds out in the middle of nowhere, where you definitely get more chance of things, like your silver tips and stuff showing up. So we do a bit of it. I don't know that we do a dive like that.
But it's mainly on reef,
yeah.
and not just in the middle of the blue. We've done a couple where we hung ropes under the tinnies and we went down to about 30 feet and just were drifting along in the blue.
Right.
But we saw a few sharks, but it was actually a bit scary. We did see quite a bit.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem, David. Thank you.
All right, and let's see, Christopher White, you're live.
Hello, and thank you for your presentation and showing us your beautiful everything. You already answered my nitrox question, but what size of tanks do you have? I'm a big guy.
Oh, big guy. Yeah, we have 15-liter, which is about as big as tanks get. Steel tanks on board, which you're welcome to use. There's no extra charge or anything.
So we have
Okay.
4 big tanks that when people make a reservation, they usually just ask if they can reserve those, and then we just have those on board for people that need the bigger tanks.
Okay, thank you.
No problem, Christopher. Thanks for joining us.
All right, and Rob Lee, you're up.
Thank you. Great presentation. Thank you very much. I'm excited. Wondering if you have, is there a chamber hyperbaric chamber on the Solomon items, or if not, where's the closest chamber and how do you get there?
There is a chamber in Honiara. It's been there a long time, as far as I can.
It's run by volunteers. So usually if there is a problem, then that's the first chamber that people go to. Otherwise, if for some reason that's not operating, which rarely happens, it's Townsville in Australia.
Yeah, if they have medical problems you can't deal with in the Solomons, they Dan normally evacuate people into Australia, which is a 3-hour flight away.
I presume you've got oxygen on your O2 on your boats too?
Oh yeah, we've got very comprehensive medical kits on the boat. We've got defibrillators, oxygen, enough oxygen to get from anywhere on the trip back to Honiara, which can be up to 12 hours. Sometimes people have been helicoptered out if we've had to. It doesn't. Fortunately, with the kind of diving we have, we're very cautious with that because we are in a remote location. But on the odd occasion, we've had a couple of people helicoptered out.
Yeah.
A couple of times. I mean, I'm talking over 14 years, probably 4 or 5 people. We've taken the boat back to Honiara, but we've got enough oxygen on board so that someone could be on oxygen for that whole 14 or 15 hours if necessary.
We have a minimum of 2 of the G bottles. I think they are the really big oxygen bottles.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problems. Thanks for joining us.
All right, and Randy Lou, you're up and live.
Hi, everyone. My question is travel from the West Coast USA. What's the best route? And then also, is it possible to either fly through Fiji or fly through Manila?
Okay, yeah, actually, we did mean to mention flights in the talk, so thanks for bringing that up. The most direct route from the West Coast is from LA mostly, but also San Francisco, via Fiji with Fiji Airways, and then on to Honiara and the Solomons. It's about as direct as you can get. The flights tie in very well. There's a short-ish layover in Fiji. So a lot of people do that. They combine the trip with Fiji and then on to the Solomons. It is also possible to fly via Australia.
So there's flights from Brisbane, Australia to Honiara as well. So some people fly to Australia and then fly up.
Yeah, but Fiji's the most direct. That's the one most people use.
You can also, I mean, it's probably no good for you, but you can also fly via Papua New Guinea. So
yeah, I think there's flights from Manila to PNG and then to the Solomons, but that's a little more complicated. So nearly most of our guests from America, and most of our guests do come from America, go via Fiji or Brisbane, mostly Fiji.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would agree with that as someone that's been doing research for their own personal bucket list trip. I would agree. I mean, so same thing as exactly what Kelly and Sam said. I mean, there's Australia, Papua New Guinea, but to me, the most easy, cost-effective, everything else was through Fiji, and you could either do a stopover in Fiji, which would be an amazing trip depending on how much time you have. Or if you want to concentrate, as I wanted to do, on strictly the Solomon Islands, it would still be through via Fiji. So LA, San Francisco, direct to Nandi, and then Nandi over to Honolulu. Yeah, I mean, it's how I found it when I was searching different times of the year and everything else. That would be the way I would do it.
Yeah. And we try and tie all our trips in so they start on the day the flights arrive and finish on the day the flights leave, just so that, you know, if you don't want it, you don't have to spend extra time waiting around for the trip to start because the flight got in 3 days before or something.
Right. And yeah, and I've done a lot of research on the Solomon Islands too, and this is why I asked Bilikiki to come, because there are other islands, as they mentioned, but they would require extra flights. And then it's land-based diving, and not knocking land-based diving, but if you, I mean, you can see there's just so much diversity in the type of diving, let alone what you're going to see within that, if it's macro or if it's large or if it's, it doesn't matter what it is, or Rex. There's so much diversity in each category, and then so many different types of diving. This is why I'm so excited about the Solomon Islands and sharing it with you. That really the only way to do it justice, and I don't think even a 10 or 14 day trip once would do it justice. I think you still got to go back multiple times, would be to do a liveaboard, and then once you've done that one flight over, you're done. They pick you up and off you go. So I really think personally this is the way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we dived there for 7 years and I don't remember ever getting bored, and I still love going back. We both go back 3 or 4 times a year. And there's always something new to see, and it's always so different that it's a really beautiful, interesting place to go. So once you're in Honiara, that's it. We pick up from the airport. You don't have to worry about anything else. The domestic flights in the Solomons can be challenging.
Well,
Yeah. Corey Joyner, you're up.
hold on. Hi. My question is, I heard you mention about the chamber in there was one in Honiara and another one in that if all else failed, you can go find one in Australia. Where in Australia would you be taken to?
Townsville.
I have to call you back.
South of Cairns.
It's right in the north of Australia. The one time we had to do it because the lady was, we didn't feel like they could deal with it in Honiara. She got like a low flying plane that Dan sent up. They had it there in 5 hours or 6 hours, and then like flew a medevac flight to Townsville. But as far as I know, that's happened once in 25 years.
What's the name of that? What's the name of that place again? Townsville?
Townsville. Yeah, like Townsville, Australian.
Townsville.
Yeah.
So it's just below Cairns. You have to fly into Cairns.
I don't know where they flew into.
I don't know where. It's a small plane. I'm guessing they can fly to Townsville. But like I said,
yeah, it's not an international gateway, but I think they have their own airstrip or a little small airport if it was something for an emergency. It's just not a well-known gateway.
No, it's not the domestic. I mean, the travel, you wouldn't travel that way, but just in case of an emergency, that's where they take you. Like I said, it's very rare. We've had a few cases of mild decompression sickness. They just deal with those in Honiara.
All right. Thank you.
No worries.
All right. And Ken Fern, I don't seem to be able to find a way to enable your mic. I don't know if you have one. So Ken Fern asked if there's any Blackwater diving.
Yes.
Last year, yes, we started to experiment with that last year, and we have done a few. So yeah, it's possible to do Blackwater diving.
Yeah, we both done some gone out on the tinnies and hung off the tinnies. We're quite careful about doing that because obviously it's dark and you're very much in the middle of nowhere. A lot of people had a lot of success where we're tied up on the mooring line, just going right off the front of the boat at the night dive. They went down and we attached lights onto the mooring line, and they got some really amazing stuff coming in just there.
Yeah, a lot of the mooring lines, they're quite deep, and they're on the side of drop-offs, so that's where people had the most success. Yeah, some of the ones off the tinnies did attract some rather large sharks. So the one off the mooring line's a bit safer.
But yeah, no, we had a good off the tinny too. But yeah, both ways work. And we ended up finding that the ones off the mooring line got the same kind of stuff, but were a lot easier and probably safer way of doing things.
But we may try the tinny ones some more.
Yeah.
Yeah, play around a little bit with that, see how it works.
I'm not sure I would do it again, but we have been doing some, yes.
Yeah, but it's more straightforward because off the tinny one we had people clip themselves on, so you've got 4 people hanging off a tinny on lines. It can get a bit messy. So the one off the mooring line we found was working really well. But yeah, short answer is if you want to go for a Blackwater dive and see what of the pelagic stuff comes up, then yeah, we can do that.
All right, awesome, thank you. And let me see here, Loretta Williams, we've been trying to unmute your mic also, but it doesn't seem like you have mic capability. So I am going to read to you. Loretta says, fantastic presentation. What are the air temperatures and diving conditions between March and June? And I'll just ask you, Kelly and Sam, if you could elaborate on that and address Loretta's questions, but also maybe quickly go over the seasons throughout the year.
Yeah, sure. So it's good diving year round. The only time we don't operate, and I wouldn't recommend going there, is January, February, which is the middle of the cyclone, the hurricane season. We don't really get cyclones in the Solomons, but we catch the edge of them and it can rain. That's the rainy season basically, and it can rain a lot. Fortunately, the cyclones tend to form south of the Solomons and go further away. So
the Solomons very, very rarely get cyclones, but sometimes the weather is affected because they do form in the south of the Solomons, and then the cyclones head south away from the Solomon Islands.
So January, February, we don't operate. That's when we do maintenance. We make sure the boat's working well, and we do everything on the boat every year. But then after that, March, April, the rest of the year is beautiful for diving either way. I recommend any time outside January, February. It can rain a little bit more from March to June, but it's also flatter. I prefer that time of year personally. From July through to September, it can be a bit sunnier, but it's also a little windier. That's when the trade winds are there. And when I say raining, it's sunny. It's still sunny most days. It can just tropical kind of rain, like pour in the afternoon sometimes. And then again, after September, October, November, December is another really great time of year with flat seas and sunny. Outside the rainy season, it's sunny most of the time.
So, because it's the southern hemisphere, June, July, August is winter. So the air temperature is a little cooler, but it is the tropics. So it's like around, 30 degrees Celsius, which is...
what's that? 60?
90.
Yeah, 90-ish.
Around 90...
85, 90. It's
90.
Never cold.
But on the boat, you always have a tiny bit of sea breeze. So it's not that hot on the boat compared to if you're on the land.
Yeah, especially once you start diving.
Yeah. So usually, just to sum up, March to May is usually pretty nice, but you could still get some rain. I mean, you can get rain all year round because it's the tropics. So.
I see. Outside January, February, it's nice all the time. Personally, I prefer April, May, and then October through December, just because the seas were a bit flatter. But some people prefer the mid-July, August, just because it's a little sunnier.
And somebody had asked if you get whale sharks at all at any point throughout the year? And I'm going to elaborate on that on the same kind of staying in the same vein. Is there any time of year that you would say somebody should come versus another for a certain type of phenomenon or animal season?
Yeah. Just on the whale sharks, we probably have one whale shark sighting a year on average. It's not reliable. It's always at a different site. So I wouldn't say that you'd see a whale shark.
Yeah. I mean, they're there, but they're mostly out. They follow the tuna around out in the open ocean. The ones that are there, and they just come on the reef occasionally. If you specifically want to see a whale shark, to be honest, I don't think the Solomons, there's better countries for it. Let's put it that way.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, just to be honest, we don't want people to come and be disappointed because they haven't seen what they wanted to. But otherwise, everything else is a great thing about the Solomons. It's very consistent year round. This stuff all year round. I don't really think there's the manners sometimes disappear a bit, but again, it's a bit unpredictable. Not really. I mean, basically everything's there all year round, which is great.
What about the crocodiles in the picture?
The crocodiles, they're definitely there all year round. If people want to see a crocodile, there's a couple of spots where they hang out a little bit. There's a little kind of like cave thing you can swim in, and sometimes there's one in there on the surface. And up in the mangroves, you do see them a bit.
There's a few sites where, we have seen them. So sometimes if people are very keen, we do look for them. But there's no special time of year for them.
No, they're around. But yeah, like I said, unless you want to go see one, I don't think I've ever seen one which I wasn't going looking for.
Right. Well, it was the other way around. I went to Cuba and I was doing the whole slide down the liverboard, going, supposed to swim with the crocodiles, and then turns out there's about 4 to 6 weeks that he goes off and finds a girlfriend, and I timed it just right. So
maybe there's a time of year where they go off and breed. I don't know. We don't. It's not enough of a focus for us. I know there was a crocodile in one spot for a while, and a lot of people were keen, and he was there for at least 6 months straight, I reckon.
Yeah,
so,
but I mean, most of the people on the boat really don't want to see them. So it's not
50-50.
Some of them really.
I don't know. We have some party folk here tonight, so.
But they're amazing to see. As long as you stay underwater, they just sit there. They don't seem to know what to make of you. We've never had problems with them. It's a bit different if you get anywhere near the surface. They start looking a bit interested. But underwater, it's fine.
As long as you stay underwater.
Yeah.
Right. Nice. Lona O'Rourke, I don't have ability to turn your mic on either, unfortunately, but she's asking, are the cabins all air conditioned?
Yes. Yeah, you wouldn't want to go anywhere without air conditioning. It's really hot over there and very tropical. So yeah, all our cabins are air conditioned. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, it looks like all our questions are done. If anybody is there and has one more question, now is your last chance. You can raise your hand in the chat box, or if you don't have a mic or if you're shy, you can type it in the chat box or the Q&A box. But it does look like we have answered everybody's questions this evening. So I really appreciate it, Kelly and Sam, for spending your time this evening. What time is it there right now?
It's nearly 10 o'clock a.m.
Okay, all right. Well, we haven't sort of dragged you out of bed in the middle of the night, then it's not too
No.
All right. I always feel bad depending on where people are, and I truly appreciate it. And I know you've worked hard to bring a presentation together for us this evening, so I really appreciate it. Doug Alford says, thank you for a great presentation. Loretta had said what a great presentation it was. So if anybody has not already heard of Solomon Islands, do a bit of digging, give us a call. As I said, I'll confess, this is the one presentation I think we've done since April that I or someone on my team haven't been. But it's me and Terry are actually fighting. Terry on my staff is going to go first. and I was supposed to go about a year or two ago, and I think Terry was too, and it was, so there's a big reason for us being on our bucket list. So I'm happy to share with you. I'm a big sort of fangirl on all of this. This is something I was really excited about sharing with everyone. So I do appreciate you coming tonight, and Kelly and Sam for sharing everything with us.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk to everyone this evening. Kerry and Cheryl. So thank you for that, and thanks everyone for joining us.
We hope
Glad
to
you
see
guys
you
have enjoyed it. Yeah,
in
I hope
the
you
Solomons today.
I'm sure if you're keen to come in, the guys at Deep Blue can sort you out. And
Yeah, absolutely. Because we haven't been there, it's like something. Trust me, it's osmosis. So we'll be able to share with you completely. Just so you know, because we didn't kind of cover it, Bilikiki has everything from 7, 10, 11, and 14 night charters. So it really just depends on what itinerary that you're looking for, how long you want to go out there, what you want to see. So give us a call and we will share that with you. You know, it's something right now with the Solomon Islands, they're very safe because they haven't had a case of corona. They've been hunkering down and protecting themselves in. But at the same time, you know, a lot of the people with the Solomon Islands, while we can do last minute, this tends to be a trip that takes a little bit of planning and a year or two out. And so, and these guys are in high demand. So now is the time to start looking at this and putting it on your calendar for the future.